I'm kind of torn. So for about $500, I can get a better projector, but for $700, I get a really good one. But it's like, Roger needs a lot of infant formulas, my grandson. So do I spend $700 you guys, or my wife gets really mad when I spend money on students. So. Okay, so where we're going to go is to Desmos. If you just look on Desmos calculator, and I think if you go to the one that's like the graphing calculator, so there it is, graphing calculator. So we go there. And, so we're drawing these lines. Like your other lines in there. And the kind of the meaning behind the line is that there's a constant rate of growth or decrease. And so, in the big picture for you is you want to get really familiar with, that's going to be a constant rate of increase. That's not. And you want to start separating those. And what happens is you'll notice this transformation through the year from things that go up at a constant rate, so we can have all these points in the line, and suddenly we get things that don't go up at a constant rate. And then next year in Math 2, then everything's like that. There are all these curves that you look at. But the other thing we want to get really good at is we want to get really good at saying, what does it mean when our line crosses that y-axis? Okay? So we're going to tell some more stories. So I'm going to tell you some more stories about my business, and I want you to just start thinking like you could tell stories of your own that would explain a line, explain what happened. Okay? So my first story is one that's based on the experience. Hey, it's based on the experience of my daughter-in-law. So my daughter-in-law and my stepson have an interesting marriage where their finances are completely separate. Even though my stepson, makes $110,000 a year working for Cisco 5 hours a week, he's got a pretty good job. 5 hours a week makes $110,000. No, so this is Desmos, but you can go to either one. So my daughter-in-law, they don't really get along, and so she wants to have her own money. And she's Vietnamese, so she works at a nail salon, and she's also a nurse. So suddenly she said to me, she said, I'm going to work in the hospital the next 6 weeks. And she said, and you know what? I get a $5,000 bonus for those 6 weeks. That's why I'm going to study that. So $5,000. Because, of course, there's a shortage of nurses. And there's kind of competition, right? So if you go to Florida as a nurse and live there and work there, you can make a lot more than that. So she's getting this bonus of $5,000. Okay, so let's suppose that Sterling Cafe, now we're not exactly, fighting for registered nurses and their business, but it turns out that we're short. We have a labor shortage. So what might you do if you have a labor shortage? So you might give somebody money just for coming in. Okay? Now, I don't know if you remember, at least on GeoGebra, I had trouble assigning my variables names that reflected it. But here in Desmos, it doesn't seem to matter. So I'm going to use M for how much money you get. Okay? It's not an assignment. It's just, this is just wasting your time. It's not on the test, and it's not on assignment. So you could just, go watch your fantasy football team. It's not going to be of any use to you other than perhaps understanding what we're doing. Okay? So we say, okay, I'm going to pay him $5 an hour, but I'm going to give him $10 just for coming and finishing the shift. Okay? If you show up, I'll give you $10. So I say, okay, 5 times that plus $10. And that is my new model for paying. Now, as you start your life, you think about all these things that are what drive life. And you say, all of us really about love, friendship, and things like that. Then as you get a little older, you say, well, we're also in this money society. And what happens in the money society is also supply and demand. Like, we need a lot of nurses. There aren't enough. So So we have to offer money. We have to offer $5,000 to my daughter-in-law to work 6 weeks. You know how much she has to work? 10 shifts. 10 shifts. That's $600 a shift. That's $600 per 12-hour shift. That's $50 an hour. She's getting a $50 an hour bonus. And I think a nurse makes, $30 or $40 an hour. So she's going to get $80 or $90 an hour. Over the course of the year, that's $180,000 a year. So not bad. Not bad. Probably not as much as a lot of your parents make, but pretty good. Pretty good. More than some of your parents make. So a lot of parents around here probably between 100 $120,000. Okay, so let me tell you, though, another story which is more common. So if you went on vacation this year, so we went out to Maine, and as we drove up, every single business had a sign up they need help. And, in fact, McDonald's, in the little town that we were in, was paying $15 an hour. $15 an hour, which is good. Now, you might say, well, in Washington State, everyone gets $15 an hour. That's the minimum wage in Washington State. But it's not the minimum wage in Maine. In Maine, it's $7. McDonald's is paying $15. That's because they needed to get people to come and work. That is not usually the case. So, if people really need a job, you can think of all these mean things to do. And McDonald's is one of them. But have you ever noticed people at these jobs where you have to wear some kind of funny uniform? What they can do is charge you to wear the uniform. Okay. And so, in this case, we're going to, so it turns out that next year Sterling has lots of people looking for work, so I can charge them to wear my nice Stinger uniform $10. Oh, no, I'm a good guy. I'm only going to charge them $5. Okay? Now, what is the situation then? So if we zoom in on that, what we see is, remember when we talked about break even? So I go in as this oppressed worker to Sterling. When do I break even? If I have to pay for my uniform. How long do I work before I'm even back to zero? I get $5 an hour, but after an hour, so the first hour, I work just to pay for my stupid uniform. Yeah. Now, it turns out that a lot of jobs are actually like this. Where you have to pay, you get charged something, so you don't actually get all the money back. You should, because the business can say, oh, yeah, you're costing me this for that, so I have to charge for that. So that is, so I made a video about that. So if we zoom back out, you see that sometimes your line's going to go through the positive, meaning that there was something in the situation where you started above zero, and something in the situation, in the blue line, where you start below zero. What's usually true about jobs that you might do, that you as a student might do? Usually you're going to start at 0, 0, right? You say, okay, I'm going to shovel your snow, or I'm going to mow your lawn, or I'm going to babysit. Usually you're not going to get a bonus or have to pay to start. You just start at 0, 0. And however, the rate that you get will determine the slope of the line. Now, nagging teacher. What do you notice about these two lines? What's the relationship between the red and the blue line? They're parallel. Why are they parallel? And if you're embarrassed to say why you don't understand, just come to me or write me an email and say, you're such a bad teacher, I still don't know this, and I'll make you videos. You don't have to have any personal contact with the teacher. I'll make you videos, you understand. So what you want to understand is that it's true that you're starting at different points, but the rate of change, so for each new x, I go up 5, the rate of change is the same, so the slope of the line will be the same. Okay, so you've got that. So, and you're saying, okay, quit wasting my time, I want to see what's on the assignment. So the assignments are these really easy things, activities, okay? More or less slope. But this is in the long term what we're going to do. And so now we want to tell stories where the line goes down. So from the point of view of business, remember there's really always two sides to the business. Okay? There's the buying part and the selling part. In terms of people, if you're the business owner, you also have these two groups, right? You have the group that you oppress, your workers, and you have the group that you try and flatter, your customers, right? And so, yeah. That's why it's nice to be a teacher, right? Because you're not in that situation, right? So you sort of can have a different relationship. But unfortunately, most people are in a business, and you have to act like your customer is always this perfect, right? And your employees are work harder, right? So let's imagine a situation where we want to get some customers to come. Okay? So how might you do that? So we'll call that their account. Okay? And we'll say, oh well, you can join our latte club. And remember, for every latte they drink, their account goes down 5. But because you're trying to build up this customer base, you say, but you know what? I'll give you $20 to start. Okay? So that's an example of a line with a downhill steepness, but it starts positive. So if I said to you, what's that 20 stand for? Or what does it mean when the line crosses 20 when x is this? What would you say? That's what you're going to have on the test. The test that you do at the end of your semester, what is this place? They have a special name for this. They call it the y-intercept. The y-intercept, right? And so when you look at this, you say, well, the line's going down 5 for every additional x, value of x, like down 5. But they'll say, oh, well, I don't care. That's obvious. But what does the y-intercept mean? And the y-intercept means, well, what was your bonus? What was your little bonus for joining the club? And you got $20. Okay. So, similar to what happens in employment. Okay, so employment, there's times when you want to get employees, and there's times when you can really need the employees because they really need the job. It's the same. It's the same when you have a store. Sometimes you really desperate to get people to come. Other times, you're so good, you can have people pay a membership fee. And so those of you who have been to Cary, you might have seen that there's a Prestonwood Golf Club, country club. They're so desirable that they can charge $25,000 for you to join. And then it costs, I don't know, $5,000 or $10,000 a year. But just to join, it costs $25,000, right? Because they're a very desirable place. If nobody wanted to play there, they couldn't do it, right? They'd say, oh, yeah, right, I'm going to play 20 years stupid, of course, forget it, yeah. Yes. Yes, you have to pay a lot of money. Now, one thing that is sort of above our pay scale is that a lot of business gets done on a golf course. So if you think about it, you're with the guy for 5 hours, right? The guy, and so you can impress them and say, oh, I'll get you on this pressing course. So for some people, it's a business expense. For my cousin is a stockbroker, so he belongs to a golf course, and he always does business on it. Okay. So what's the account going to be? So this is a case where you have to pay $5 for a latte, but I'm charging you $20 just to join my club. So you've joined the Sterling Latte Club, and I'm sorry, I only allow people who are descendants of the people who came over on the Mayflower to join our club. It's still exclusive. I might let you just do it. So again, two situations. And so, yes, sir. What's the meaning of that? Now, where are we trying to go with this? Okay. So, eventually, what we're trying to get to is to look at data. So eventually we're going to try and look at data and see if there's a line that we can use. Okay, and that is something that's coming up. Okay, and so you might have seen that on the Easy CVM that you did, in the idea of the line of best fit. So that's where all this is leading to. So we're going to try and use equations not just to describe a strict relationship, but also to see if we can see a pattern in them. We'll work on that a little bit later. So that's all I'm going to say for today. So you guys, what I'd like you to do is go look at your assignments and try and work on them. Okay, so there's a couple of easy assignments today that involve figuring out slope. Yeah, go get your headphones. Okay. And so thanks for your attentiveness, and let me see if I can find them or not. I'll go on those as well, but if we look at the assignments for today, finding slope between 2 points. Okay. So when you look at that, okay, so you can just drown me out. You don't have to listen to me. But if you're not sure what to do, I'm glad to help you individually, or I'll show you some some people, the way that they remember is rise over run. So the hardest part of it is how much you go up, how much you go over. So it's hard because usually you think in alphabetical order x over y, but it's y over x. So that's the key. How much did it change? And when you look at A and B here, for example, you say, I'm not sure what it's going to be, but it has to be negative, right? If you go downhill, it has to be a negative number. Okay, so this is one of your assignments, right? Is to do this one. Like, so this one I go down 1, 2, 3, 4. So down 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you'll notice that in this I can do minus 4 over 4. And notice how it cleverly changes minus 4 over 4 into minus 1. So you don't have to say the most reduced term. So minus 4 over 4 is the same as minus 1 over 1. It's the same one. So that, it just takes a little practice. You're just doing the change in y, change in x. Downhill ones are negative. So if I look at my next problem, here's one, right? I will go down 1 over 2. So I went minus 1 over 2. That answer. Okay. Now see how it made it into 0.5, right? So that way it doesn't matter which points you take. For the next problem. Okay, so here's a good one for you. So how much did y change? It didn't, right? How much did x change? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you say, oh, well, that was just 0 divided by 6. And 0 divided by 6 is nothing divided by 6 is nothing, right? So it was 0. Okay, so that's one we haven't talked about yet, which is a horizontal line doesn't have any slope, right? It's neither up nor down. So it has a slope. And then, if you have a curious mind, you say, well, okay, I can go up, I can go down, I can be level. What is the one case we haven't talked about? A vertical line, right? A straight up and down line. What's that slope? What would that slope be? Let's see. Y goes from and they might even have that if we go to the next problem. So for this one, yeah, just work on it a little bit. See if you can get good at this. And as you look at it, do you have to count the squares? Well, you don't have to, right? This one goes from minus 4. Let's see, the change in y, it goes from minus 5 to minus 4. How much is that? Well, it's uphill, right? So it's 1. And then how much did x change? Oh, from minus 4 to 4. Looks like an 8, right? So, 8. Oh, not that. Warning. 1/8.
Oh, so 1 up, 8 to 10.
So it went 1 up, 8 over. So it's positive. So and so it's tricky though, right? You say, well, wait a minute, these are negative numbers. Yes, but you're going uphill, right? So if you go from minus 5 to minus 4, that's plus 1. And minus 4 to 4 is plus 8. Check that. Yeah. And then it's not right.
That's not right.
Yeah, that's frustrating. Yeah.
And then that's when I shows up, and then
It shows exactly what you did. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So this is probably so Silas just found an error in it, which is if you have one that's 1/7, it converts it to decimal, but 1/7 is a decimal that's repeating at six places. So then it says, oh no, it's not close enough, and it gives it wrong. All right. So that is not your being wrong, that's them being wrong. Okay. So you really want to feel by the end of this that you know how to calculate slope. If you don't feel comfortable with that, write to me, chat to me, tell me. I need more. I don't understand. It's really just that. The ratio of how much you go up or down for how much you go up. And usually we're related to 1. Okay, so for every new step of x, how much do you want to change? So did you get another one that didn't work? Silas has discovered, oh, is it another 7th one? Or it's a 3rd? And that one doesn't work either. That's funny. So it's as if so I think a teacher made this, and they might not have checked what happens if you have a fraction that is really a repeating decimal. Yeah, so you finding that as well? You got one that was right. Yeah. Yeah, so you can see the problem with using teacher created material. Not completely possible. All right, I'm going to look at this one. So this one went from 4 down to 5, so it went minus 9. And it changed x from 0 to 2. 9/2. I bet this one works, because it's not a repeating decimal. See, they're only giving me ones that work. This one went from minus 4 to 2, so it went up 6. And it went over 7. This one won't work. 6/7. Huh! It let mine work. See, it's nicer to teach. It's not that I don't have to teach it. That's mine work. 6/7 shouldn't have worked either. Yeah, that's funny.
I didn't even put that underline before. I was putting commas instead of backslash.
Oh. Oh, okay. Well, that. Oh, yeah. So that one is showing you what to do, and then the next one you'll be able to move it. Yeah, so that one you can move it. You can move it up or down. Yeah, there you go. That's it. So after you've worked on that, there's another activity, moving a point around. Give that a try as well.